First up, D2C insights into the apparel sector with Clovia, and we have with us none other than the founder and CEO and a passionate speaker himself, Pankaj Vermani. So if I may please request Pankaj to take it forward from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. It's a delight to be part of the gang today. Could you stop sharing, so that I can kind of share my screen as well. I just wanted to kind of show a little bit of a presentation. So yeah, guys, phenomenal to be here. I think it's a very short session that I have, so I really wanted to make the most of it. See, the predominant agenda that I had in mind today was that there is a very interesting, just to give a very quick insight of who we guys are. I'm usually the first guy to start things, so that there are nice lingerie pictures and at least guys wake up. So to give you a little sense, we guys are one of the fastest growing lingerie brands in the country right now. We have been predominantly an online first brand. We started as an online company, and over a period of time, we realized the opportunity in the offline space as well. And today we stand at a place where it is more of a mixed bag for us, where almost still 80% of the business, we're still online first, comes from the online section, and there is still 20% now within a span of 2 years. It's been 0 to 20 for us, which has started to come from the offline space. What it does help us do is that, all of a sudden it has started to put us at a point where, as a business, we can see both sides of the spectrum. And we've been in the industry long enough to have lots of friends in the online, D2C space. In fact, almost all of them, and a phenomenal number of friends, in the offline industry as well. And ever since the pandemic has kicked in, I have seen a lot of things unraveling, and I thought that this could be a perfect, talking point today as to what I felt is what I wanted to bring to the fore was that sitting where we are, what stark contrast we see between a D2C business versus a traditional business. So a lot of you who are already in the online space may not understand the offline and vice versa. So there might be some help that might be coming. For the rest of you, it might be a rhetoric. But then again, it's 10 minutes about launch. At least guys cannot complain. Very quickly, we started the brand in 2015. We're selling almost 5 pieces every second now. We are an EBITDA break-even story. We make profits. In fact, last month I made around 10% EBITDA margin, which is not a very small feat for an online organization. We have a 360-degree presence, shipping almost 200,000 packets a month. The NPS has been always skyrocket, except of course the brief span of the pandemic when we were in the process of shifting our warehouse. The day the day Modi ji said that we're going to put in the Janta curfew was the day when I was actually shifting my warehouse. So we had a phenomenal, learning experience in terms of how to ramp operations during this time. So I'll let go of rest of the things. I think just to set the tone, because I probably have just 5-7 minutes more. I think the whole agenda was that let us give you a very quick highlights in terms of what we felt were very interesting D2C changes that we saw, how the online consumption over the past 3 months have unraveled, and how we are also we're talking to customers daily. We are sniffing what is happening in China, what happened during SARS time, and how can I draw a parallel to in India, in a different time zone, in a different social infrastructures to how things have changed. So jumping very quickly as to what we believe have been very interesting observations, which could be helpful for everyone, or at least a good anecdote to share sometime. So online business is not a surprise. It's actually back to, July was back to pre-COVID levels. In fact, this month we will be growing, way beyond our pre-COVID numbers on the online side. The business margins have improved considerably, drastically improved, because the customer acquisitions have gone down. The serious buyers are coming, and when we see a lot of gross margins improving for us. Gross margins improving because, we used to do a lot of freebies, gifts, etc. We said, we have less inventory now, so let's hold it back a little. And we tried to do more experimentation around it. And we saw that the customer was a lot more, accepting now. COD literally was a demonetization kind of a ecosystem. No surprises for that one. One phenomenal thing that we've seen is that tier 2, tier 3 has seen a phenomenal growth. We took a lot of pride in being 50% plus tier 2, tier 3 business. The number has reached 60% in the last 2 months. Last 60 days has literally seen almost a 20% increment, in the contribution. What was 50 has effectively gone up 60 now. Another thing is that we've seen a lot of growth is coming from people who are converting from semi-branded. My category is a very semi-organized ecosystem driven, right? The smaller town will have very small 15, 20, 25, 30 crore brands, which are kind of, running their show in specific regions in the country. And all of a sudden we started realizing that, a lot of people are converting from those semi-branded, unbranded ecosystems to brands. And I think it has a lot to do with the focus on hygiene that people have started to realize. It has a lot more to do with people now understanding that, they have to be a little bit more careful about the products they choose. Chinese product was one of the biggest problem that we used to have, because, Chinese mal effectively, so to speak, had kind of flooded the Indian lingerie business. And all of a sudden it's disappeared. All of a sudden customers not accepting it anymore. So that's another very interesting change that we've seen. We see a lot of, one interesting and very interesting thing is that, we used to have very sales sporty times, right? We used to have like the middle 3 to 5 when people were working in office and had a little bit of lull period. That was a sharp increase in the revenue at that point of time. 10 to 12 was actually a very interesting time in the night where sharp increases were seen. Those spikes have gone away, and the revenue is almost consistent daily, to the extent it's almost consistent through the week. We don't see the kind of spurts we used to see on Saturday, Sundays. I think work from home, of course, has a great role to play in kind of changing of these sales patterns. So we had to kind of reconfigure our marketing, basis the same learnings. Innerwear doesn't seem to have changed, its consumption, even the occasion buying, the cruiser shopping, a lot of those things. For example, even though June was very less marriages, for an obvious reason, we still saw the standard, wedding time purchases happening. So even people who were probably expecting to get married in a certain period of time, and they still wanted to keep, the excitement alive. And we saw a lot of, conversions at that point of time. Of course, supply chain for everyone is kind of unstable. I think there is no surprises on that one. But we believe that is also fast recovering, and it will take, again, it's very, very dependent on individual industries. So I can speak for only mine, the kind of people. So if you were probably sourcing from other countries, then of course, you have your own set of challenges. If you're making it within your ecosystem, then there are different kind of challenges. We control our entire supply chain. So we believe that, going back to the previous times is happening very soon. Now a very quick 2 minutes about how the online and offline worlds are different, and a lot of you may find this redundant information, but then again, I think it's a very interesting, important point that at least people who are from one part of the world try to understand the other part, right? So we went into this business because the majority of our business is used to be online, and we saw a very complementary user base coming in. So so women who were buying in the offline space versus the one buying in online space, we saw difference in sizes, we saw difference in their purchase patterns, we saw extreme amount of differences in their ages, right? And age is also somewhat related to size in some ways, because as you grow older, there is a little bit of body weight gain that Indian ecosystem is seen. So we saw that there was an absolute complementary user base that we saw, and that's the reason why we said that it's a great idea to kind of get into another market. So I think for a variety of reasons, for brands which are now thinking that they should do online as well, it's a very interesting aspect that they should think about whether it makes sense to them or not. But you might end up finding a very different complementary kind of a user base on the other side. So be very, very open about it, right? Another interesting learning is that there's a huge conversation about operating margins. Our sense over the last 5 years has been that operating margins at the end of the day literally become similar at the end of the day. While the customer acquisition cost may be high for you, in the online space, in the offline space, you will have your retail counters cost, which will be the cost of the salespeople, the cost of trade commissions. And if you're selling at a marketplace, and the cost of the trade commissions, the cost of dispatch sometimes that they'll add, the blended, bottom line that you'll end up getting is literally similar. So while there has been so much of a debate about what is more profitable, what is less profitable, our sense is that it kind of irons out over a period of time. Where things change, drastically is the cash flow, right? And that's a very different ball game. Online cash flows, if it's an own store, it's like this. If it is a marketplace, it is like, okay, you'll get it, in a span of time. But if it's offline retail, of course, everybody knows there's a certain amount of challenge. So you have to plan your cash flow in a certain way, separately for both. And then, of course, management of inventory, there's no surprises there. Online inventory management is like so much simpler as against offline inventory management, unless you back it up by technology and kind of make it something which is easily digestible. Another thing is agility of rolling out. So we online space, we roll out almost 150 styles a month, as compared to, literally 24 in the offline space, which even for offline is fairly high. In the standard industry expectation. Corporate costs of technology become substantially higher in the online space, something which a lot of offline players are not very comfortable with. And that's one of the biggest challenges I've seen most of my friends go through, when all of a sudden they say, boss, to deploy a technology team is literally one cost is coming as at double the cost of my entire, let's say North India sales force. It's literally like that. So it's a very different ball game, all of a sudden, at least when it comes to the places. But D2C has its own beautiful methodologies. While direct to consumer, you can get one customer at a time. So it's a huge effort as against you go to a retail chain and all of a sudden you have 2,000 walk-ins a day which can look at your brand. But the growth that you end up seeing today, we are servicing 900 cities in the country. For me to go in an offline environment to kind of do that would literally have taken me more than 5 years. We managed to do that probably within the first 6 months. The biggest D2C edge that you end up getting is the customer data. We have like almost 1.5 million data, which is available to us. Then of course there's centrals, large lifestyles, brand factories where my product is being sold, but I don't have access to the end consumer, right? So those kind of challenges, of course, we end up seeing. Another thing is that data in itself is storage wasted. That's again something that I keep telling all my offline friends. That while we can harp about data, we can say I have phone numbers of all my customers. That doesn't mean rat's ass here at the end of the day if you're not analyzing and creating actionables out of the data. So to give you a little sense, we have like almost 75 data points that are being tracked. So they are at least 20 crons that run at the end of the day, which kind of churn the data and kind of build out a profile for the end consumer. So every night 1.5 million people's profile gets a little closer to kind of becoming smarter. So that's the kind of edge that D2C brings to the table. Very quick 2 minutes about the crossing over part, and this is something that I have designed for so many of my friends pro bono, where they said, yeah, give me like an online roadmap. And one thing that these are like 3-4 factors that are super critical, which I've seen all my friends struggle with. One is technology and marketing. You cannot just outsource and think everything will work out. They have to be a lot more. They have to be ingrained into your DNA beyond a point. And and you have to be serious. Then you have to think of teams which probably will be a build, operate, transfer, or probably something that you probably have to build in-house. You cannot kind of just be arm's length also, and at the same time think that it will become part of your DNA. Another thing is, I've seen a lot of people trying online marketing, but they don't track. I think talking about that in an online media summit, I think it's I should just let that one go. Channel conflict, I think, is a big one, a very, very big one. The first thing that Clovia did, and I think probably I'll end with that, is that, when we started off, the biggest learning that we had was that different channels have very different, means of addressing their end consumers. And every channel is unique in a way. So if you're trying to sell the same, one size fits all, if you're trying to do for every channel, you're bound to piss at least one channel off and not make the most of it. So it's very important to understand the nuances of individual channels and then kind of build your business out basis that. One interesting thing, for example, Clovia did was that my online and offline offering are absolutely different, right? So if you were to, if you were to buy something from Myntra.com, you will not end up buying it in a lifestyle store. And that's predominantly the reason because, lifestyle is a very different discounting, and Myntra would have a very different way of discounting, right? They're two different kind of, giant animals to be tamed, right? And you have to kind of figure out a way to do that. So yeah, at a, I think, very high level, this is pretty much, what I had in store for you guys. I think these are two different worlds, D2C as a business versus the offline, but absolutely different nuances and very, very complementary to each other, and with tremendous amount of juice in one. So one is better than the other. Maybe yes, no, I don't know, but there are lots of similarities, but at the same time, they have to be dealt with absolutely, tangential approaches. And you have no choice but to, ingrain it in your DNA. It took me 2 years to ingrain offline into my DNA before I could even come on this platform and talk about it. So yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. Yeah. I hope it was, helpful in some ways. Shani, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Pankaj. That was a very insightful session. We actually have a couple of questions for you if you can answer them. So, has the inventory changed? Is there a shift to more economical products versus luxury products? And do you think this is a trend that will stay for so long? Do you want to comment on that?
So I think it has, of course, value purchase has increased, but I would not say the buyer for certain. So nobody is downgrading. Let me put it like that. I don't see people downgrading to a different level. I do see people buying probably a little lesser. That might be a possibility, but that is also very, very specific to categories. I have friends who are into occasion products, right? Which will be lehengas and things like those. For
Correct.
them, it's a very different ballgame right now. It's a very challenging time, right? Because people would not buy those things that they're not relevant anymore. But for people like us and other people where loungewear is, for example, happening, I don't see people downgrading at this point of time. They are just being more cautious and buying things which are more essential. So if you're part of essential, you're on. If you're not part of essential, you have to innovate.
Makes sense. So buy essential, but buy comfortable luxury products.
Buy essential, buy comfortable, and product that you used to buy pre-pandemic.
Makes sense. And I think this is a question that probably you get asked a lot and everyone gets asked a lot is, do you see things going back to normal if we suddenly find a vaccine? Or, do you think the movement will be the flip of a switch, like finding a vaccine, or is it somewhere ingrained into the user to now buy online and that's a trend that's going to continue?
So I have a very, I think, entrepreneurs by design, it's optimism is a entrepreneur's choice, right? So you should take a pinch of salt. I think, but the data that we have been seeing, right? For example, in China, there was a huge surge immediately after the lockdown stopped. And then there was a little bit of dip because revenge buying happened and then it kind of stabilized over a period of time. But there are two parts to remember, at least for a country like India, right? I think it will be faster than we guys are envisioning it to be. The recovery will be faster. I hope it is not as fast. I hope people remember that the pandemic will take time to get away. I think this country behaves much more irrationally in terms of going out there and changing things. We are the kind of people who went from literally 3G to now we're talking rather 2G to we're talking 5G now. 4G didn't even happen to us. That's the kind of country that we are. So I just hope people don't forget within 6 months, like the way we forget everything, that masks are going to be essential. People who were part of SARS way back in 2015, even today you see somebody from Taiwan and Hong Kong to be wearing masks, right? But in India, it's very different. So to answer it in short, I think the recovery will be much faster than we guys are envisioning it to be, but it will have to be backed by a vaccine. I think that's for sure. If the vaccine doesn't happen, then of course, it will take some more time.
Makes sense. Thank you so much, Pankaj. I think this was a delightful session. Over to you, Kavya.